and organization and your role. And this is our last session on unlocking the art of using photography for storytelling and capturing impact. And once again, we are thrilled to have Carolina with us. Carolina, you're welcome to take us through the final session.
Great. Thank you so much, Eve. Greetings to everybody here. I'm so glad you could all join us, and so grateful to be together, that the internet cooperated with our scheduled time, that we were able to get this going today. And I wanted to start off as we have in our other series, just if everybody could just take a moment for us to breathe together. We'll just do this quickly as we're running a little behind. Just everybody to just land in the space. So if you could just get settled wherever you are, and maybe if you're comfortable with it, close your eyes. Just feel your feet on the ground if you're seated or if you're standing. Feel that connection to the earth. Take a deep breath in and let go of all of the things that have been going on in your day today so far. And another deep breath in and out. And offering so much gratitude to you all for coming and for this opportunity to share this virtual time and space together. And I wish you all the best in all of your work here. And deep breath in and out. Okay, let's get going. So I am going to share technology, behave. Okay. Okay, so as many of you who have been with us throughout, we've had 3 sessions, and we started with thinking about imagery, its impact, the role of the photographer, and some of our collective and individual ethical obligations. And last session, we moved more towards the technical, creative part of photography and improving our ability to communicate with imagery. And today we're going to be covering some of the best practices once you've made the images and thinking about the approach to gaining consent with our subjects and different plans and strategies that can be augmented into ones that you already have in your various organizations that might help give you some ideas about digital workflows and post-production. Eve, did we want to go through some of the homework? Do we want to take the time, or what would you like to do? Okay, so maybe for those of you that were able to do some of the homework, thank you, and we'll check in later regarding that. Eve, are you coming back on there? Okay, so that was just a way to warm you all up, right? And we were talking about different angles, different lighting, and so I hope that for those of you that were able to do some of that, that was informative. And I see that you're saying, I don't know if the tech team has seen this. There, it's back up. Thank you, Francis, for fixing that. And thank you, John, for pointing that out. Now the chat is is working. And so I'm going to move forward then with the other aspects of what we were going to cover today, and I will circle back with that. So the first thing that I want to talk about is we touched on this a little bit during the last session in terms of what many of you are doing in terms of wearing multiple hats, right? And you know, the sort of different pieces of what you will be covering in your different roles, right? So practicing switching from, if you're a clinician, to a photographer, right? And one of the things that I've found useful in these settings, just like in any other professional practice, is that to take some time to practice with other staff members about what it is that you're going to be asking before you even raise a phone or a camera, right? To make sure that if you're asking for consent from a subject, that you're clear about what you're going to be using it for, and that you're fully transparent even before you begin making any pictures with people, right? So I found that that's useful, you know, for people that aren't used to it, especially to practice it with other people. And oh, welcome, Olivia. I'm so glad you were able to join us. Just seeing you come on. Greetings. And so just to encourage that practice and to make sure that if it's not already in your communication plan, to begin incorporating photography in a way that's achievable, and that you are checking in with people in terms of how it's going. You have some sort of collective way of looking at imagery and thinking about it, similar to what the photo competition, and as you begin gaining more and more skills in that arena, so that you can see one another's progress and really learn from one another as well, from the different community victories and different lessons that were learned. So I wanted to also, you know, we last time spoke about common mistakes that are made for beginner photographers. And I also wanted to emphasize one thing that I know for many people, you are going to be looking at images on your phone, right? So remember, one of the things that we talked about in terms of sort of common mistakes is that you're too far away. So that's especially important for when we're talking about a population that will largely be looking on a very small screen, right? So the importance of keeping that in mind when you're documenting things. You want to, of course, have options for visibility, right? And how you're able to look, whether it's on a computer screen or whether it's projected on a wall. But I wanted everybody to remember that as they're composing their pictures, and I wanted to re-emphasize that from our last session. Okay, so I wanted to move forward. So I've worked also in video production over the years, and so what I found useful in that arena that can apply here for making stills is this use of a storyboard. So perhaps some of you have seen this, heard this idea. And basically, you know, for folks that haven't heard this terminology, storyboards are used before you're making any pictures, before you're filming, right? This is part of the pre-production, the planning, right? So in the same way that you're planning what types of images you might need, creating a shot list, what would be useful for your region, what would be useful for reports that you might be making, what would be useful for all of your different needs. Something like a storyboard can help you get accustomed to visualizing things, just like when we were looking at the chart that had these sort of extreme close-ups, right? Remember the image of the hands, right? The black and white that was very, very close up. And here, you don't worry about being a very good drawing skills person. I'm horrible at drawing, but this was just to give you an idea and to help us think more visually instead of with words, right? This is often a challenge in terms of thinking about things more specifically and giving a thought to how you're going to be composing things, right? So, for example, in this, you have a title here. This one is just, for a particular scene, they were envisioning a commercial here, right? So this is what they were describing, and you can see there all the different terminology that they're using. Shot 1, the WS is wide shot, right? And some of those different shots that we went through. Shot 2, close up, right, of a clock. And these things, even if you're thinking about, for example, this could be opioid distribution for nomadic populations, for example, and what are the different stages, right, that happen. And if you would need to illustrate that with photos, you could think through, well, what are the different stages and what are those photos? What are the most important things? Is where they're getting water from, the buckets, the sinks, right? All of those aspects could be worked into planning the different images. So even though this is more commonly used in video, I find it very useful when I'm walking through folks in terms of thinking visually to make still photography as well. So I'm including all these also just as a reminder. We're going to send you the resources, Google Doc, and I'm including a lot of different things that you all can go back to from where I've been pulling things to go further into detail about some of these things. Okay, so this is a long, long slide, but I wanted to make sure that everybody could see it while I also was speaking about it. So I know you all do exceptional work and are dealing with many different intense situations, and that sometimes you have these ideals and you just do your best, and maybe you don't get all of these different things. It's the same thing, with photography and with making these images. So I thought I would just lay these out as sort of the ideals, and this would be, for when you're about to have a discussion with somebody about making a picture, right? So as you know, the trust is critical. So work at the speed of trust. Begin discussing possibilities of photos with subjects without a camera present, right? I took 6 months getting to know a community of homeless women with HIV that I worked with before even bringing a camera in. And so be aware of how the impact of that camera, what it can do for people and for your relationships. Be clear about your intentions and fully transparent about what you're asking them to give consent for, right? If you're just going to be using it in a report that is not going to be put online in any way, that's one thing. But if you're doing it in another, if you would like to use it in another way, obviously very different. So this is another one that, circle back. If you are able to show people pictures, make sure that they're okay with them, or the family members, if they're the people that are giving the release. And then also, many of you have your own legal teams, still double check that your model releases are covering your usage. And then if there's any APCA usage, excuse me, that they might have as well. And again, this would all be common sense for you, just to keep it here with photos as well. What do you do with minors? What do you do with people who are not literate? How will you gain consent from folks that are differently abled? So just so you are thinking about this before you go into a situation in terms of the consent piece of photography. And then this I already said in terms of practice and creating time to actually discuss photos and to share so that you can learn as a community. And then one thing that I often find is left out, some of my professional photographer colleagues could do better in this arena, is to go back and show people the impact of what it is that you're doing. So they're collaborators in this once they are giving you consent for images. So if you've used an image in something that has allowed you to explain a program more clearly with their image, and it's it moved you forward in some way, do your best to share back with those people the results of how them sharing the image has helped you. And I feel like that creates a a beautiful circle of trust and of transparency in working together. Okay, so hopefully that's all clear. Okay, so I want to move to talking a little bit about workflow. So this has been a foundational book for me over many, many, many years that's put out by one of the professional photography associations here in the US. And it's an incredibly complex book. And it goes very deep into a lot of the technological aspects of photography. And some of it, for the place that you all are at, you won't need, but it's something that you could certainly grow into. So a number of the charts that I'm using here, I've pulled from this book that was very influential in my developing all of this when we first switched from analog film to digital. Okay, so in this chart, you're looking at, right, the basic concepts of digital photography workflow. And all of the different circles are showing you different aspects of what you do. So once you've gained consent, or you're working with photographing an object, right, and you have that image, what happens, right? So at the top at noon, right, you have planning, right? So hopefully before you get too far down the road in creating a story with somebody, you already know what's going to happen with that image, right? You've already created a plan that will address some of these different things. And I will say that both the color management, sharpening, archiving, these are all things that we could do entire classes just dedicated to those semester-long aspects. So don't worry if this is too early to understand these things, but something that you can grow into down the road. So just wanted to put this up as something that was very foundational for me and hopefully will be helpful. Okay, so as many of you will be working with phones, and some people will be working with cameras, there's all kinds of different formats, right? And so just like there's the docs and then the docx's and the PDFs and right, all of those different sort of extensions that we see, for photography, these are the most common. And some of these are actually more illustration types of files. So you see the number 8 and 9, 7, 8, 9 really come more from the illustration side of things, but sometimes you can find images in those. And these are all the .jpeg, right, .png, and sometimes phones will also have different formats. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is that JPEGs are the most common type of photography file. And this is really the sort of way that we can all use photography on phones without running out of space right away. And with also being able to put them in emails, to be able to text them to people, for them to be very flexible in terms of how we send them because they've been compressed. And so one thing that I want to make sure that people are clear on is that when you are creating images, whether it be on a phone or on a camera, on the camera, you'll have more options in terms of making multiple types of files, and you'll have more space because you'll likely be photographing onto an SD card or in some cases a CF card, right? Well, you'll have more storage capacity. On a phone, because of the space concerns, you're going to have a compressed image. So what that means is basically the camera is taking out information in order to make something smaller, right? So when you have other formats like the PSD number 5, a Photoshop or a TIFF, right? You have these bigger files that some of them can be 50, 60 megabytes, whereas a JPEG is tiny, can be kilobytes, right? These tiny things that we see on our phones are very, very small. But there's always trade-offs, right? So the main thing that I want to emphasize is that when you are pulling things off of your phone or your camera, this is going to open up a whole other thing that I'll let you read this in 1 second. It's just that to take your original photos and put them aside. Do not edit, do not crop, do not do anything with those photos. Just ingest them, right? And put them aside, because anything that you do to those things will be considered, you will lose it. It's called a loss destructive editing, right? You're losing the original information. So let me just give you a minute to look through this chart. So what this is showing is, right, capture is literally when you're making the photograph, right? So capture could be with a phone, with a camera. You can make pictures on laptops now, all the different ways that you can capture an image. And so once you've done that, in the yellow there, the ingest part is going to be, well, where are you putting these, right? Where do they go? Are you putting them in the cloud? Are you putting them onto an external hard drive? Are you putting them onto the office desktop? Where are these pictures going to be going, right? And then that next sort of pinkish reddish stage, right, is where you're going to be doing editing. You're going to be getting rid of things that aren't going to be useful for you. You're going to be creating a selects folder, like which were the best ones, right? And then here, there's a reminder about a master file, right? And so that you have all of your information there, your captions, and we're going to go through later on more extensively how you can use editing software and to help you in all of these, and depending on what your setup is and what works best for your particular situation. And then from there, once you've sort of done these steps, you are going to go to basically an archive, right? So where are all of your photos living? Where is this on a desktop? And then also, is there a backup? Are there multiple places that you have a backup that are, if they're on the cloud, if they're also on an external drive, right? And what are your systems for doing this? When photos come in, you make a master file, you make an original file, then you make the color corrected file, right? And then your selects go into this archive, and then you can determine, depending on what your preferences are and needs, whether there's a set of photos that goes to, for example, APCA or another partner, right? And these are all become part of a system of workflow, right, that you're creating with photography. Okay, so from there's many different ways that you can approach this. And also, this is just, I picked one that's relative for JPEGs, and there's many different ways that that book goes further into it. And this is just one that was relatively basic in terms of using JPEG capture, right? Because many of you will be doing that. So here again, there's a list there about doing the basic edit, right? The metadata, which we'll talk about, which is embedded. Each image has metadata, right? So it will tell you the date, it will tell you the dimension, and we're going to go through this in a little bit more depth when I do a live edit here. And here's also a place where you can add all kinds of information. And I would also say here is a reminder that anybody has the capacity to delete metadata. So in a lot of the social media platforms, photos that are uploaded, they are pulling out metadata from there. So you are losing a lot of critical information when you are uploading those types of images. So be mindful of that in terms of what is in there. Okay. So I know this was a lot of different pieces of information. So I'm gonna just pause here and check, make sure in terms of the chat. Let me see what's going on. These are just introductions. Welcome, welcome. Great to see everybody here. Perfect. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Good. Okay. So does anybody so far have any questions about this. I'm going to go further into many of these aspects in a minute, but just so far, I know this is a lot of information initially. Any questions? Okay, let's see, what do we have here? Okay, Catherine, what do people do when you upload pictures on the internet? Could you elaborate a little bit on that, Catherine? You mean technically what do you do, or could you put in a little more detail there? Yes, just in terms of I was just saying for the metadata piece of it at this point. Yes, so for your websites and for your organizational usage, this won't be the case. But when you're putting stuff on social media, for example, it's common practice to strip out the metadata. So let me go further into the metadata, and this might be clearer. And I'll, if you want to circle back later, Catherine, if it's still unclear, that might clarify your question. But if you put it on a website that's your own or that is your organization's, it won't pull out this information that's kind of embedded into the photograph. And I'm sorry, that's probably a little bit unclear so far. So I'll clarify that. Thank you for the question. Anybody else? It seems like maybe I should keep going as some of this needs to be further clarified. Okay. All right. So this is also just something to begin visualizing what it is that your processes are, right? You have a bunch of images, and so the verified transfer utility software is going to vary for whether you're using a PC or a Mac. And I've put some in the resources, just softwares that are good at copying things instead of just copy and pasting, because sometimes you can lose information. For Macs, it's Carbon Copy Cloner is the one that I use, but for PCs it's a little bit different. So I have some more information in the resources. And again, so this is just to get you used to thinking about how you're copying and backing up imagery. And one thing too, I'm going to pull out of this for 1 second. So is there a way, I'm seeing Dr. Eve's name here on the screen when I pull out. Francis, is there a way to put us more on the screen and also make Olivia bigger so she can be more visible here? Okay, so while we're sorting that out, maybe I'll begin doing sort of a live demonstration so that we can utilize all of our time here. So what I'm going to do is, so there's many different softwares that are used when we're talking about color correction and that stage that we were talking about earlier in terms of the ingest and the parts that, let me move back and get that screen up. Hang on 1 second. Sorry, let me get this back up. Okay, technology issues today. Give me 1 second. It's now disappeared. My apologies. All right. Gone, completely gone. All right, 1 second. I'm sorry. The presentation screen just disappeared. Okay, so basically what I'm going to try and do here is show you a process of editing that I normally go through. And what I wanted to refer back to, now I've got it back up, is okay. Thank you for your patience. Okay, there, now it's all behaving. Okay, so this chart, right? So when we're talking about, we have our pictures, right? We have the capture at the beginning there. And so what I'm going to go through is the ingest, and then that second stage of how you would manage some of the color, right? And some of the different ways that you're creating different files. So this will be clearer as I go through this edit. So what I'm going to do, the softwares that are the dominant photo softwares are by far Photoshop and sort of in complement with either Bridge or Lightroom. And there are many different ways to edit photos and organize photos. Hopefully you can all see that now. And there's also free ones or GIMP is a very useful free editing software. And I have that in our resources. Photoshop and Bridge or Lightroom now is about $20 a month in terms of if you want more capacity. Photoshop is an incredibly powerful program. So I'm going to start here in what this was from a recent job that, so this is starting in Bridge. Bridge is more of a organizing software, right? You can see things, you can mark things, and I'll just sort of do a brief tour of what's on the screen here for me. So these are all the folders that I have on this computer that are connected to different photo shoots. And, you know, I would encourage you, and I'll go through that in terms of captions, to make sure that you're keeping things labeled in ways that are going to be easy to find, and that also you can utilize all kinds of different systems that will hopefully in the long run, like thinking forward in 10 years, what will happen to these photos, right? Thinking about somebody who you may not even know, are they going to be able to find these pictures in your archive? So here you see all of these different pictures, and you can see the two different types of photos here, right? For me, on my camera, I shoot in what's often called a RAW file, the NEF, which is a lot bigger file, and also a JPEG. So if you would pull in, let's say in your case, it would be all JPEGs, right? So, or whatever phone, right, format that comes through. So what I would suggest doing, right, is just going through and pulling out your best pictures immediately and marking them however you would. Make sure that you make some sort of mark that delineates them. And obviously you can develop your own systems here in terms of, you know, this will go to a partner, this one stays here, right? Just whatever system makes sense for you. And some of the different folders that you can make, right? Just make sure that you can make copies of, you know, for example, your best photos are going to be all together, right? You see the white is the color that I'm using here in terms of the select, so that you can utilize sort of the best images that you have available. So this is also a reminder for me, you know, I'm accustomed in the work that I do to be making many pictures, many iterations of things. You know, people blank, angle moves, and I know that it's a practice to think of the images that you're making as sort of sketches almost, so that I might have a sequence. I'm just going to show you this, that is quite similar, and that will be useful in different ways, right? So when you're thinking about making images, sometimes you go in and out and you're just going to do one, but you want to make sure that you're available for perhaps a whole scene that unravels, right? So this is why it's also important for the subjects to be very comfortable with you in the room, right? So that you can just stay, you're not in and out. You are ready to watch the scene unfold, right? So you can see here that there are an enormous amount of information, and I hope that this isn't overwhelming, that there's just all kinds of things that you can do within programs like this. And I want to point out on the screen here, below the photo, you have what's called the metadata, which was what I was talking about earlier, right? So if you imagine the photo, within the photo, it has all of this information, right? It's telling you what your settings were on either the phone or the camera. It's telling you the size. Remember, in one of the classes earlier, we were looking at the pixels and the dimensions that came up. It's giving you all kinds of different information here. These are color profiles, which I don't want to get into too much, but there's all kinds of different information here. And the other piece that's also here is all the different time, right? And you can go much further into this, and you can create basically all the different data points that you want within a photo. And this is just one way that you can do it, is within a program like Bridge or Photoshop, that you can add in all of this different information. And so this is something that, in terms of being able to be consistent throughout, whether or not you attach it to the actual metadata, right? If you're adding in something to a photo, it can go to the metadata, or it can also go directly into the files, right? So this will be different based on the different programs that you will be using, but there's often going to be the capacity to go in and here, what we have in Photoshop is called renaming it. And you can also see here that you have access to changing the metadata. There's all kinds of different things that you can do. So what I will do once I have my selects pulled, right? So these are my bests from this day 2 of this event. I will go in and I will rename it. So this gives me all kinds of different options in terms of folders that I can create. And there's also super simple ways to do this that don't necessarily involve this sort of complicated software, but it's important to stick to conventions that will make sense for you all, right? So I always have, like, I just noticed a typo. That this was a job that I did a little while ago, that it was a blood drive, and this was a client, a union that I work for here with my name. And you all can develop whatever it is that is the most relevant for you, and I'll show you some suggestions that I have in a second. And you'll see here that it keeps the original name on the bottom, the current file name, but then it also, you can add caption information that's most relevant here. If you want to put a huge amount of information, like a full caption, I would suggest putting it within the metadata, because as you can see, this is already a long file name, and that can be a little bit arduous to deal with on computers. Okay, so this will change the photo, and you can see that this immediately changed to another name, right? And has all this other information, right, that we just put underneath. Okay, so at the risk of having this be too overwhelming, I'm going to pull back for a second and let me go back. I don't know why today they keep on disappearing. Okay, let me go back. Huh. Happened again. My apologies. I don't know. I caught the technology I caught the technology issue bug. All right, so I'm going to try it again. Pulling back up this screen. And hopefully it will stay up this time. Thank you for your patience. Okay. So what I was saying before, in terms of captions. Okay, hopefully this will work. Okay, so there's a number of ways that you can do this, and I wanted to just introduce you to Bridge and Photoshop, but sometimes that's not a useful tool. But it's really important for each set of photos to have caption information and to have sort of the basics of what it is in terms of, oh, it says it's paused. Can you all see this? Why is this? Could somebody tell me in the chat that if the screen share is working, I'm getting a message that it's paused. It's paused. Okay, thank you. All right. Why aren't you letting me unpause? Okay, it's loading. Ah, okay. Thank you. Great. Okay. Wow, this is all over the place today. Interesting. All right, let me go back. Okay, so this is all working again? No, it's paused. It's not letting me. I'm so sorry. Let me see what's going on here. It's not letting me share from this particular browser. All right, give me 1 second here. I am going to move towards something else. Okay. All right, let me see if that browser is behaving. Okay, can everybody see that now? Okay, great. Thank you for your patience with that. Okay, so what I was saying here is that it's super important, regardless of whether you use something like metadata, which you're attaching within the photo, or if you're putting it in with a folder and you're tracking information for each set of photos, right? That you have some sort of system developed for captions and also something that's a standard way of logging information. So here are just some suggestions. Obviously, if you have other ones that are useful for your purposes, did it go back to pause? What is going on here? Ah, technology. Got spoiled there for 2 in a row. We were working pretty well. Okay, something going on here. All right, I'm going to switch browsers again and hope that that works. Okay. Okay. Hopefully this will hold. No, it seems to be that particular when I go full screen that it blocks it. So I'm going to stay here. So the thing that hopefully that's large enough so that you can all read it. The thing that I was saying was just for each set of photos, right? You want to be thinking, okay, in 10 years, what's going to be useful information in addition to what's useful now, right? Perhaps in this tagging section, you have something that is you want to be able to search by country, or you want to be able to search by a procedure, some sort of innovation. You want to be able to search by age, by gender, by particular illness that they're struggling with, whatever. This is your field, so you would know what you would want to put in here. But it's an important practice, and whether you develop, people putting it in notes on their phone, whether there's a document that is submitted with each batch of photos, that this can go with the photos that are being made. So again, this also includes details about names, if people are willing to share their names, their contact info for whether it's the community, the family, how, where you got model releases, excuse me, that sort of thing. And then also if you obviously would, anything else that you would add here that would be useful in time. So I encourage you to work on this and make sure that it's most relevant for what your uses will be in terms of adding it to the batch of photos that you're creating. Okay, so I am, I think, going to keep going since we started late. Is everybody okay if we just go straight through, or let me survey the group here. Do people want to take a couple minutes to stretch and take a break? Hopefully we had some success with this in the chat. Everybody's okay. Okay, so we have at least one person who would like a break, so I'm gonna go mixed, but so I prefer going, if anybody needs a break, that we do take a break. So my apologies for continuing. That it's not by a majority, but just if anybody needs to stretch their legs. So let's come back at, let's see, it would be 4:03, I believe, for if you're all in that time zone, or and we will continue, and I'll show a little bit of color correction and how that could work. Okay, I'll see you soon.
Audio settings one. Lwaki bakola bisetting bwe bityo oba? Aleka Farida nke kajoining. Aleka ya 1.5. That's all I did. So can end after 30 minutes.
So, quando andando con delle persone, andando nel dentro da banana di due. Fino a che tu have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's in secondi numero. Quindi,
Vabbè, io gli danni, quanto mi sarà sempre? Mi cambiava un attimo. Quando guarda agency, non
but now we're making a missing a lot of structure. Typically, this
you go to open your bank on the another date score of other invoice.
building a date to spend it in 20 days. Look for that. Yeah, these are the great person. That's it.
Murugiere,
Well, I think that's many of them. Here's the rest of
questa non fare
Ora io faccio una io. Mamma mi lo dice quando non ti sento.
gambe va per ecco la girlfriend sarebbe
No, kadar friendly. Due khanda di kids. Zara bani an kole. Ragula mai chama.
bene ma
Dice di.
mamma va verde.
Okay. Olivia, could we can hear you. I know people are trying to warn you in the chat that we can hear you. It's still recording. Olivia.
Ajjanjabi Melissa, Robert ajjanjabi Melissa. Abazadde tebayomba. Complain. Naye kano ngambe kaika ke ka girlfriend. Hello Olivia.
All right, I'm gonna mute her, I think, from here if I can, or if Francis, okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay, if everybody could come back and hope you had a good break. And so what I want to do here, I know that that was a complicated jump into software. And so I want to do, okay, good. I'm just seeing in the chat, everything's well. Okay. So what I want to do briefly is just go through and show what I was talking about in terms of color correction and some of the basics of what you would do after you've taken the image into some sort of program, and just a couple of simple things that you would want to be considering. So I'm hoping that this is going to behave. And, you know, I should ask, Eve, is it okay if I use your photo that you submitted for homework as an example? Are you there? Okay, well, I'm going to hope, since we were showing it the other day, that it's okay to use this. Yes, okay, thank you so much. Glad that came through. Okay, so okay. Hopefully everybody can see that. Yes, it seems like it's working on my end. So so I am in Photoshop, which it doesn't matter if it's Photoshop or any other photo editing software that you're going to be using. And I just want to give you an introduction to some of the basic tools of what you could do with photo editing. So as I was saying before, in terms of making an entire folder of photos that you've ingested and setting that aside, right? Marking that originals and don't touch them. Those are the ones that will have the most information. Because once you start making adjustments to photos, for JPEGs and for these types of photos, you can't go back for ones on phones. So what's often called destructive editing, right? So these programs will change things, which can be good. But if you ever decide that, oh, that wasn't a good improvement, you can't go back to the original when you're using that type of image. So I want to introduce you here to just a couple basic things. And this will be universal on any program. So no worries if it's GIMP or if you have another photo software that you're using. So this whole side on the left over here shows you many different tools. And if you hold the cursor over it, it tells you what it is. And there are 80% of these tools that I don't ever use. So similar to many of the programs that are out there, there's huge potential that you can use with these things, but you often don't. You only need the basics. So what I end up using the most is over here on the right. There are a few different sections that I'm going to show you here. So basically there's different types of adjustments that one can make. And the ones that are the most useful, whether it's brightness or lightning, right? You can take that photo and you can adjust it, right? In terms of, hopefully this is fairly easy to read, that it's changing, right? Or if you need to darken it, in this case, you wouldn't be, but right, if you need to lighten a photo, or this would be a way that you could correct it. And then same thing also with contrast, right? So you see that the quality of the photo is shifting, right, as you're moving that. And curves is also something that is showing you the data that's available in the photo, and that is a very useful tool that you can, it's just a different way of doing a similar thing in terms of making corrections. So there's that as a possibility. And then also we spoke briefly about the different color balance that exists when you're taking pictures, right? You're making them in whether it's daylight or whether there's a lamp or fluorescent light, and the different types of hues that are available in the photos. And I don't want to get too far into color theory. That's a whole other complicated thing. But basically, you're going to be working with an RGB scale. You'll see this on the right, which is a red, green, blue, because it's digital, right? If you're working in a print scale, it's a different type of color arrangement. It's CMYK, the K being black that you don't see here. And basically, this is allowing you to correct the type of light that you have encountered in your images. So in case, for example, in this one, you wanted to play with, this has, hopefully it's fairly visible depending on your screen, a fairly yellow, because of the fact that of the quality of the light that's in the image that you've made, that it's fairly yellow, right? So if you look on the yellow channel here, I probably wouldn't want to add more yellow, right? I might want to see if pulling some of it out makes any difference. And then same thing in terms of looking at the different exposures, how we could potentially fix it, right? Could make those, it's really what is most accessible in terms of the faces, right? So there's going to be sort of basic things that you can do to enhance photos once you've captured them. And many of these things you will not need to use, for example, if you do have Photoshop, but there are some things that are useful in terms of envisioning it as black and white, if you'd like to, all kinds of different tools that are available for whatever uses you have, right? So I don't want to go too far into that, as it will certainly create too much information, but I did want to just remind you that this is possible, of course, as you know, after you've made a picture, to also to maybe crop it. Here there's a crop tool, and this is a common tool, so that this is a well-composed image, but if for whatever reason, maybe mistakenly you've seen that there's some private information that's on the table there, you could crop it out, right? So these are all things to be aware of, you know, obviously in the image making and what's visible, right? You can then save different copies, right? And create a different folder system, so that you can, these are all different folders that I've created, right? So I have this one today. You could make a new folder that you could label final corrected image, something like that. And also whatever makes sense for you. If these are the ones that you're going to be sending off to a partner, you can put the partner's name, but it's important to create folders and systems that are going to help you down the road in terms of finding things. So for me, I can show you some of the different conventions. Hang on one second, let me stop this. That can be used are, you know, like what we were saying in the caption, right? You can do it by location, you can do it by date, you can do it by the particular treatment that you're given, the particular, all the different things that would be most relevant for you all in terms of sorting that out. So I'm going to look and make sure that seeing some things in the, okay, so people confirming that you could see. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and just see if there are any questions. Okay. Settings, okay, that's been resolved. Okay, so no questions. Okay, great. So I want to leave us some time here for Eve and any other announcements that need to be made. And I really, there's, this obviously was a lot of complicated things that I introduced, and hoping that you can customize them to what will work best for your situation, your organization, your partners. And, you know, I always err when I am teaching to giving people more information, and then people can absorb it as they're ready to, and do more research and more customization as needed, you know, as you are the masters of your own fields. And so hopefully I knew that this was going to risk being an overwhelming amount of information, but I hope that in time and in the resources that we share with you, you can extract what's most useful for you and follow up on any of the details that you want to in terms of going further into all of them. I also wanted to, I know Catherine had a question about what was pulled out, and basically the panel that I was showing about the metadata, where you can add in the name of the photographer, we can add in all of those different pieces attached to the photo. So as I said, if you're putting that on a website, if you're putting that within your own protected space, those things will all remain. but when you're putting them onto other channels, like social media is known for this for the worst, they will strip metadata from those images. So oftentimes when you're posting, you're losing your copyright. There's many things in the agreements and the terms of service with many of these social media platforms that are very much obviously in protection of the company, not of the producer of the image. So be careful with that. So hopefully that is a little clearer, Catherine. If you have other questions, please let me know. And if you want to come on and speak it, or if you want to put it in the chat, please let me know. Okay, great. Okay, so any other questions? I know Eve has some announcements, and it's been such a pleasure and to work with Eve and to learn more about the amazing work that you all are doing. And I hope that this has been helpful and that you can practice and take your time growing into this. I always remember when I was first learning photography years ago, there was a quote by Cartier-Bresson, famous photographer, that said that your first 1,000 images are your worst. So if you're just starting off with photography, be generous to yourself. It takes time. It's amazing that we all have access to be able to make all these photos now, and to be able to really communicate visually and tell stories visually is certainly a practice and a skill set that I hope you all will enjoy developing, and that you're using all sorts of tools around consent and practices that we've talked about in terms of describing shot lists and making sure that you're crediting the photographers and the organizations that you're working with, putting that information in the whole cycle, right, in the whole plan of creating images, backing them up, right, making plans for your future of photography. So thank you so much for all of your time and participation, and wishing you all the best in everything that you do. And thank you again so much for all of your amazing work. Eve, do you have something you would like to say? Okay, so I see a question coming in maybe as Eve is coming online here. So John's asking about photo storage sites. So I personally use Dropbox. Some people use Google Photos, and there's also, we put in the resources, the ways that you can privatize your photos. So actually, maybe let me pull that out and I'll put that in the chat. So that you can, if you're just scrolling through with family or friends, you want to be mindful about what's on your phone, right? If you're, photographing patients or people that are going to be sensitive to you sharing that. So I think what I will do while we're waiting for Eve is I will put that particular one in the chat, and so you all can see that. And there are many ways that you can store photos, right? And I also have in this document, Eve and I are going to go through and organize it a little more clearly. You want to make sure that you have both a place that you are always putting your photos and then an additional backup, right? So those things can be either an external drive or in the cloud. And John is asking this question that is really subjective, and also, there's some that are free, there's some that are you have to pay for more money, you'll get more storage space, and also will afford you sort of different things in terms of privatizing folders and things like that. So those are all useful things to consider. I personally use Dropbox, but I don't know in terms of cost comparison also which one will be most useful. Okay, so I want to pull up, let me see if I can find I don't know why these are disappearing this today. I'm just going to look for this document that I had. And a lot of these also we will include different suggestions for external drives. And these are, I should say that I'm not getting any, I'm not a representative of any of these companies. These are just what my personal preferences have been over the years. And so let me find that. We're going to have all kinds of different things that we're going to send. I'm sorry, I was not anticipating sharing this, so let me see if I can find it. Okay. No, that's the resolution. So I will make sure, John, that you get that and that everybody does. I have a long list of things that we're putting together for you all here, so I'm not seeing it right away. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay. So, and this, if you have a different type of phone, right, you might have to look for the specifics and about how to hide these, but you can, basically this will show you how to obscure particular folders from when you open up your phone and are scrolling through your photos. So hopefully that will be helpful, and also encourage you to look specifically towards your kind of phone and the different ways that you can privatize them if this doesn't answer some of those questions. Okay. Anybody else have other question? Oh, you're welcome, John. Other questions? We're gonna go through this resources, as I said, so that it will help you dig deeper into some of the issues that we covered, and that you all, some will be more technically inclined than others. So you can do that at your leisure. Eve, did you want to make any announcements about the upcoming photo competition, other things that you wanted to share?
Yes, thank you very much, Carolina. And I want to thank you so much, dear participants, for accepting to join us to change the face of photography art in palliative care for the better. So in addition to this, the African Palliative Care is going to soon announce, this is going to be in February 2024, we are going to announce for call for photographs to consider for the photography contest. And the themes will be explained in that advert. It will include things like innovation, you being able to reach the most vulnerable populations, things that show creativity, things that demonstrate the ethos of palliative care, and also the art of delivering palliative care. So it's going to be lots of things, and you're going to have lots of prizes to win. So I encourage you to even further visit the African Palliative Care Association website. The recordings will be there after a couple of days because Carolina needs to make some edits. Take another detailed look at the recordings and then start capturing images that tell stories, images that attest to the standards of quality. And I can assure you that it's going to be rewarding in terms of monetary gains. And then also it's going to be a tool for your advocacy, a tool for capturing stories that tell your impact. And we are going to soon be accepting photos to be included in the applications for small grants for palliative care. You may not be able to write so well to explain, for example, the problem you're going to solve. But if you use your data storyboard and say, I want to illustrate this problem. The problem starts here, and this is what I want to do to address the problem. You'll be welcome to put together maybe 3 photos that tell the problem that you're going to address, and you just attach those in your application. So those of us who struggle with writing can take advantage of photography. I hope this is very helpful, friends. And also for those who applied for small grants, we are going to have an opportunity for service providers to apply for some small money to buy equipment to support photography. And this is going to be low-cost equipment, maybe smartphones or low-cost cameras to help you tell moments using photographs. So I want to thank you so much for joining us, and let's keep in touch. I'll just check to see if we have some questions. I don't think we have any questions in the Q&A. I'll just check here. John asked, I don't know that a photo can be used for abstract presentation. I found out, he didn't know, I found out about this during the National HIV Symposium. Yes, actually, the photo can be submitted as an abstract. We have the photo voice methodology, and photos can be very powerful. We have 2 minutes to the top of the hour. I don't know whether, Carolina, you have any one take-home message for us.
Thank you. You know, I would just say that it will be an arena that you can grow into in terms of how you practice making photos. And I have found that, as I mentioned earlier, working in community, sharing with one another, sharing lessons learned around, you know, this is very difficult when I'm thinking about a treatment plan to then become a photographer. You know, how have you found ways to do it? You know, just if whether it's each local place can develop structures where you can review those things and maybe look at photos or talk about challenges that you're facing and get all of the different planning and technical pieces more worked out, then it will improve. And so I would just say be patient and have fun and make sure that you're mindful about the ethical concerns and protecting all of that. And I'm hoping also that you will now, when you're looking at pictures out in the world, that you will pause and think more about how they were made and where the photographer is, what kind of light, what kind of angles, what kind of messages are coming through those images to us every day. And that will help you think about the ones that you want to create with your communities and what sort of messages you can put out into the world using this powerful tool. So I wish you all the best of luck, and yeah, appreciate you. Is there any way that we could see everybody on screen? That
Yes.
was my I would love.
Try to switch on our videos, please, so that we appreciate this cohort. Please turn on your videos. Yes, John, unmute yourself, please. I think it's not possible.
Okay.
Yeah. So we thank so much our sign language translator, Olivia. Thank you so much. And everyone, I thank you for attending this series. And I wish you huge success in the use of photography art going forward. Thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of the day and a lovely Christmas and festive season ahead. I'll welcome you to live at leisure. Caroline, I'll share the evaluation with you later. And also we are going to share all the videos.
Okay, great.
It was
And
a huge pleasure.
great. And if Francis, could we stop the recording?
Yeah, he's going to share the recording, sorry.
No, I mean, just stop the recording now. And if you have just 1 minute.